Every ocean hides secrets, but one of them was never supposed to be found. For centuries, sailors whispered about an island that appeared without warning, then vanished without a trace. It wasn't on every map, it wasn't in every report. Yet everyone who claimed to see it described the same impossible place. If the island doesn't exist, then what did they really find? The first report sounded like ordinary sea legends. Captains spoke of a towering island rising from thick fog with black cliffs and peaks that touched the clouds. Some claimed they saw lights moving along the shoreline at night. Others swore they heard distant bells echoing across the water. Every witness told a different story. Yet every description began with the same words. It appeared out of nowhere. Asterisk, asterisk, as the stories spread, fear replaced curiosity. Ships began avoiding the region, even when it meant adding weeks to their journey. Sailors believed anyone who sailed too close would never return the same. Some came back terrified, refusing to speak. Others returned with no memory of what had happened. A few never returned at all. Soon the island earned a new name among those who sailed the open sea, the Forgotten Shore. Years passed, but the island never disappeared from sailors' stories. Then something changed. Entire crews began reporting the exact same details. A narrow black beach, towering cliffs, a silent lighthouse with no light, and one strange sound that echoed through the fog, a deep horn that no one could ever find. It was as if the island wanted to be discovered, but only on its own terms. One stormy night, a young captain ignored every warning. He believed the stories were nothing more than fear passed from one generation to the next. As lightning split the sky, the fog suddenly opened, and the island stood directly ahead. Towering cliffs surrounded a narrow passage leading inside. With nowhere else to turn, he gave a single order that changed everything. "Take us in." The passage was barely wide enough for the ship to enter. Towering cliffs blocked the wind, and within seconds, the storm vanished. The sea became perfectly still. No waves, no rain, no thunder. It was impossible. Behind them, the ocean still raged. Ahead, complete silence. The crew stared in disbelief, unaware they had just crossed a boundary that no map had ever marked. The island looked abandoned, but it didn't feel empty. Strange stone paths stretched across the shore, untouched by time. Every building stood perfectly intact, yet not a single door was open. No voices, no animals, not even the sound of wind. Then one sailor noticed something that made the entire crew freeze. Fresh footprints in the black sand, leading away from the sea. None of them had stepped onto the beach. Against the captain's orders, one sailor stepped onto the shore. He followed the footprints toward the silent village until the thick fog swallowed him completely. Minutes passed. Then came a single scream, followed by absolute silence. The search party reached the exact spot where he had vanished. They found no body, no blood, no struggle, only one fresh set of footprints, leading back toward the sea. Panic spread across the crew. The captain ordered everyone back to the ship immediately, But when they reached the harbor, it was gone. The water where their vessel had been anchored was completely empty. No sails, no ropes, no wreckage, only calm, black water reflecting the silent cliffs. Then, from somewhere deep inside the island, the horn sounded again. This time, much closer. The captain gathered the remaining crew and followed the sound into the heart of the island. Hidden beneath the cliffs stood a massive stone gate carved with symbols no one could understand. It was already open. Beyond it stretched complete darkness. As they stepped closer, every lantern on the island went out at the exact same moment. Then, slow footsteps echoed from somewhere inside the gate. A shadow slowly emerged from the darkness. It looked human, but something was terribly wrong. Its clothes were centuries old, yet untouched by time. Its face was hidden beneath a hood. When it finally stopped, it spoke only 4 words. "You were never invited here." The crew stood frozen. Then the stone gate began to close behind them, sealing the only path back forever. Without warning, the ground began to shake. The hooded figure slowly raised one hand, and the ancient symbols carved into the walls started glowing beneath the stone. The air grew heavy. Breathing became difficult. One by one, the crew dropped their lanterns. The captain looked toward the gate, but it had completely vanished. There was no entrance anymore, only an endless wall of solid black rock. The hooded figure lowered its hand, and the shaking stopped as suddenly as it had begun. Then it turned and walked into the darkness without looking back. The captain had one chance to escape or follow. Every instinct told him to run. But something stronger pulled him forward. He grabbed a lantern from the ground and stepped through the darkness, disappearing beyond the ancient doorway forever. The darkness lasted only a few seconds. Then the captain found himself standing beneath a sky filled with unfamiliar stars. The island was gone. The sea was gone. Before him stretched the ruins of an enormous city, silent and untouched, as if an entire civilization had simply stopped existing in a single moment. In the distance, thousands of lights suddenly flickered to life, one after another. Figures slowly appeared across the city streets, hundreds, then thousands. They stood perfectly still, watching the captain in complete silence. No one moved, no one spoke. Then, as one, every head turned toward him at the exact same moment. The captain realized the horrifying truth. The island had never been abandoned. It had been waiting for someone new to arrive. An old man stepped out from the crowd and smiled as if he had been expecting this moment for centuries. "Every visitor asks the same question," he whispered. "How do we leave?" He paused before pointing toward the endless darkness beyond the city. "No one leaves. They only become part of the story, so the island can call someone else." By morning, the storm had disappeared. A passing ship crossed the same waters and found nothing but an endless ocean. No cliffs, no village, no island. But floating on the waves was a single lantern, still burning with an impossible flame. To this day, sailors claim that on the darkest nights they can still see its light, waiting for the next ship to follow. Maybe the island was never lost. Maybe it was never meant to be found by everyone. Somewhere beyond the horizon, hidden by fog and silence, it may still be waiting for the next ship brave enough to follow its light. And if one day you ever see a lonely lantern floating on a calm black sea, whatever you do, don't follow it. The old man led the captain through endless stone streets. Every house looked live-in, yet no laughter, no voices, and no music could be heard. Time itself felt frozen. Dust never settled. Fires never burned out. It was as if the city had been trapped inside the same endless night for thousands of years, waiting for someone brave enough, or foolish enough, to uncover its greatest secret. At the center of the city stood a tower so tall its peak disappeared into the clouds. Unlike every other building, it showed signs of life. A single window near the top glowed with a pale blue light. "That is where the keeper waits," the old man said quietly. "Every soul that arrives here must climb the tower, because every story must have a new guardian." Inside the tower there were no stairs. Instead, a narrow spiral path wrapped around an endless hollow shaft that seemed to descend forever. Strange blue flames burned without heat, revealing walls covered in thousands of names. The captain ran his hand across the stone, then froze. At the very end of the list, carved into the rock as if it had always been there, was his own name. Asterisk, asterisk, the old man never looked surprised. "Everyone who reaches this tower finds their name," he said. "It appears long before they're born." The captain laughed in disbelief, until he noticed another inscription beneath his name. It wasn't a date of birth, it wasn't a date of death, it was tomorrow's date, followed by a single word, Keeper. Before the captain could speak, a loud crack echoed through the tower. The blue flames dimmed, and every name carved into the walls began to glow. Thousands of voices whispered at once, impossible to understand. Then the old man looked up with fear for the first time. "It's too late," he said. "The keeper has awakened, and it knows you're here." Heavy footsteps echoed from somewhere below. Each step shook the entire tower. The whispers stopped. The blue flames went dark one by one, leaving only the captain's lantern. Then a colossal shadow began climbing the endless shaft. It was far too large to be human. The captain couldn't see its face, but one thing was clear. It was climbing straight toward him. The old man stepped in front of the captain and whispered, "Do not look into its eyes." But it was already too late. The creature lifted its head, and two pale lights appeared beneath its hood. In that instant, the captain wasn't standing in the tower anymore. He was back on his ship, watching the island rise from the fog for the very first time. Then he realized the terrifying truth. Everything since that moment had been planned. Every storm, every whisper, every footprint on the black sand had led him here. The island had never chosen ships at random. It searched for one person, one keeper, one soul willing to carry its secret into the next century. The captain slowly understood something even more terrifying. He had not discovered the island. The island had discovered him long before he was born. The creature stopped only a few steps away. It slowly raised one enormous hand, not to attack, but to offer the captain a choice. The old man fell to his knees. "If you refuse," he whispered, "the island will return to the world. And this time, it won't take one ship. It will take every ship that crosses these waters." The captain stared at the creature's hand. He realized this was never a battle between good and evil. It was a prison. Every keeper sacrificed a lifetime so the island could remain hidden from humanity. The old man had once made the same choice, and now, after centuries, his watch was finally coming to an end. Without another word, the old man removed the silver pendant from around his neck and placed it into the captain's hand. Instantly, his hair turned white as snow. His skin cracked like ancient stone. Centuries of time rushed over him in seconds. He smiled one last time and quietly dissolved into dust, carried away by a wind that existed only inside the tower. The moment the captain closed his fingers around the pendant, the tower fell silent. The creature slowly bowed its head. Every blue flame reignited at once, and the thousands of names carved into the walls faded into cold stone. Outside, the city began to disappear beneath the rising fog. A new keeper had taken his place, and the island had found its next guardian. Far across the ocean, a merchant ship sailed through calm waters under a sky full of stars. Without warning, a thin layer of fog rolled across the sea. One sailor pointed toward the horizon. A single lantern floated on the black water, glowing brighter than the moon. The captain ordered the crew to change course immediately. But no one noticed the ship had already begun turning toward the light on its own. Deep inside the tower, the captain opened a massive stone window overlooking the endless sea. The island had vanished beneath the fog once again. Somewhere in the darkness, another ship was already approaching. He understood what every keeper eventually learns. The island could never be destroyed, only hidden. And from this night forward, protecting its secret would be his burden alone. Sometimes on silent nights, the new keeper could hear voices carried by the wind. They weren't asking for help. They were warning him. Never fall asleep while the lantern is burning. No one explained why, but every keeper before him had carved the same warning into the tower walls, and one chamber near the top remained permanently locked from the inside. For weeks, the captain obeyed every rule. He never touched the locked door, but each night the whisper grew louder. Then, one evening, he heard 3 slow knocks from the other side. No footsteps, no voice, just 3 knocks, repeated again and again. When he placed his hand against the ancient wood, he felt something impossible. The door wasn't cold, it was warm, as if someone was breathing behind it. The knocking stopped. A long silence followed. Then a familiar voice came from behind the door. "Captain, open it." His heart froze. It was the old man. The very same voice that had turned to dust before his eyes. Calm, gentle. Impossible. The captain stepped back in terror, because deep inside he knew one terrifying rule. The dead never knock twice. The whisper vanished. The tower became silent once more. But when dawn arrived, the captain found fresh footprints in the dust leading away from the locked door toward his own room. He followed them with the lantern shaking in his hand. They stopped beside his bed. There was only one final message scratched into the stone floor. Next time, don't answer. The captain never told anyone about the message. Instead, he erased the words from the floor with his own hands. But the next morning, they were back. This time, there was one more sentence beneath them. It's already inside the tower. The captain searched every room, every corridor, every staircase. Nothing. Yet every night after that, he could hear slow footsteps, stopping just outside his door. On the 7th night, the footsteps didn't stop outside. They entered his room. One step, then another, circling slowly around his bed. The captain held his breath. He could hear them clearly. But when he raised the lantern, the room was completely empty. Then, directly behind him, a whisper filled the darkness. You looked into its eyes. So now, it can always find you. The captain rushed toward the mirror hanging on the stone wall. His reflection was still there, but it moved a second later than he did. He froze. Slowly, he raised his hand again. His reflection smiled. The captain did not. Then the figure inside the mirror leaned closer and whispered without making a sound. It wasn't trapped inside the glass anymore. It was waiting for him to look away. The captain never looked away. Minutes passed, then hours. As the first light of dawn entered the room, the reflection finally stepped back into perfect sync. The danger seemed over, until he noticed something on the mirror's surface. A fresh handprint appeared from the inside, not his, and beneath it, 4 words slowly formed through the frost. I'll wait forever. Years passed. Sailors continued telling stories about a lonely island hidden somewhere beyond the fog. Most dismissed them as myths, but every now and then another ship vanished without leaving a single piece of wreckage behind. And on the darkest nights, far out at sea, a single lantern could still be seen drifting across the waves, patiently waiting for the next name to appear on the tower wall. Some believe the island appears only once every 100 years. Others say it waits until someone becomes curious enough to search for it. No map has ever marked its location. No compass has ever pointed toward it. Yet every generation leaves behind the same impossible story of a black island, a silent tower, and a lantern that never burns out. If you ever hear this story from an old sailor, don't laugh. Ask only one question. Did you see the lantern? If they suddenly fall silent, if they refuse to answer, leave immediately. Because those who have truly seen its light never speak about what happened next. They simply spend the rest of their lives watching the horizon, waiting for the fog to return. And now one final question. If one night, while standing alone beside the sea, you suddenly notice a single lantern floating silently across the black water, would you follow it? Or would you turn around and walk away? Because every legend begins with someone making the wrong choice. And perhaps, somewhere beyond the fog, the island is already waiting for you. Some mysteries are never meant to be solved, only remembered. If you enjoyed this story, subscribe so you don't miss the next mystery hidden somewhere in the world. And tell me in the comments, would you follow the lantern or would you walk away? Until next time, keep your eyes open. Not every island appears on a map.